I'm here with Nicolas Michael McGovern and Phil De Witte for the movie Liberty. I gotta say, this movie gutted me. A lot of what the movie does is it breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience, talking to me, and kind of holds me culpable for a lot of the animal cruelty, specifically with like zoos. I think it's kind of specifically pointing at, but just in general, I wonder, like, a lot of people might, when they watch stuff like this, they kind of all of a sudden get defensive. I don't watch movies like that. I'd like to look inward and see where I'm messing up. With that said, what was kind of the idea behind this, the choice of breaking the fourth wall and to use that to get your point across?
Well, I'll speak on it. I think this is Phil might speak more eloquently about the origins of it, but it was a daunting prospect for me as an actor. I'd done it a little bit in theater before, but never on film. And sort of talking down a lens can be a scary void, but it became really empowering. Yeah, I hear you. It's deeply inquisitive of the audience watching it, and we just got off another call with someone else, and it's like, what do you want an audience member to take away? And I think it's the questioning you're talking about, right? Because this messaging is also coming from someone who's kidnapped 6 people, locked them in a cage, and is psychologically torturing them for a number of weeks. Matt's not exactly standing on high moral ground, which I think really helps the ambiguity of this. I think this is also an exploration of kind of extremist psychology that we're seeing ravage our country.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, to kind of bump off that, like, your character isn't, but your character isn't real. This is a movie. So this is hey, what if this happened? What do you think of this now? And I think that's where, like, if, Matt's character did that in real life, it would just be automatically dismissed exactly for the reason you said. But this is a what if situation. This is a movie. Mm-hmm. And now let's watch it play out. Okay. Now, with that out of the way, what do you think of it now? And I think it's really effective.
I think it works also because there is a story behind that. We do not just deliver all the messages that the film conveys about the fragility of life, about the suffering of wild animals in captivity. We could choose, would have been able to make a documentary, but with a story behind that, but what Matt is doing compared to the mental and physical breakdown of those 6 people inside the cage. I think choosing a thriller is, it was great to deliver all the messages inside of the movie.
With narrative features like Liberty, you got a lot more room to play, a lot more tools at your disposal than, like you said, with the documentary. Because with the documentary, well, first of all, in my experience, the documentaries that are most effective, the people that need to see it the most never do. But with a movie like Liberty, it's like, oh, cool, I'll watch a thriller, and then they'll be able to sit back and just kind of take it in. And then maybe by the end of the movie, they'll be like, wait, I got some thoughts. I'll consider this a bit.
Maybe the film will evoke a strong emotion, strong discussion, maybe lead to action, who knows? But and for sure we have, footage, we have sound, and with those two, that's why I like this media. Maybe we can inform, we can entertain, and maybe we can create an emotion that can lead, who knows, to action.
I also want to point people to onelifeproduction.com. That's the number of anyone listening. It's the number one lifeproduction.com. You seem to have an idea of film production, but you have an idea of the films you kind of want to highlight going forward. What can you say about onelifeproduction.com?
The thing is mostly about one life, because we have one life, and we live like life is eternal, infinite, but life is finite. And it's true that I saw so many people who pass away around me. So I was thinking one day it will be my turn. So I was thinking, as a filmmaker, what do I want to leave behind me? Just, commercials, or something that's, or something with my knowledge or the experience, speak about those who suffer in silence, because one day it will be my turn and I'm going to pass away. So I think all the good that we can do has to be done now, and we don't have to wait and wait and wait. So I say, okay, and then that's the reason why the production name is One Life, protection because we have one life.
Well, I mean, not to get, I didn't smoke enough weed before this interview to get into it too much, but like with one life, you know, you have one life, do it now. But once you're dead, you don't, as far as we know, you don't have the ability to reflect on whether you lived that life properly or not. Like, what's kind of your thoughts on that? From what I understand, the idea is you live one life, you want to live it the best way you can. But once you die, you're gone. You can't reflect back on, oh, cool, I did the life right, or oh no, I made this mistake. You're as far as we know, once you die. So you can't reflect back on it. I don't know if benefit's the right word, but like for someone that just wants to just kind of stagnate through life, or someone that wants to hurt people, or someone that wants to do good, like what does the idea of legacy, what does that mean if
Sure. I mean, I think the idea of legacy is very tied into Matt's motivation for doing what he does. It's one thing to say that he feels obviously quite strongly about animal rights and welfare, but it's another thing to look at what's the real reason why he's doing this, right? And I think it was his own sort of misinformed version of a vision quest or rites of passage, a way of trying to give his life and affirm its value and leave a legacy behind. I think that's very much at the heart of his motivation. And I do think that's a connecting point for anybody rather, watching this film. I think we all have an innate desire to do something useful, or for something useful to happen as a result of the way we live. If Matt's anything in the positive realm, he's at least an example of someone in his own misinformed way, of someone who put it to action, because that's the only way you leave a legacy, I think. So yeah, it's very much centrally tied into motivation, and I think what the film is asking its audience to consider. So it is a good question.
Towards the end, and I won't get into spoilers, I'll be vague about it, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about, the phone scene. So there's a bit of legacy there as well, because you have very limited time at that. Like, we all have limited time on this earth, but in that position, their time is very limited. And what do you say to someone? That whole scene was just heartbreaking to watch. Kind of what was Phil, like, when writing that scene, kind of what was going through your mind during that, and what was it like shooting that? Because I think like all the actors just have to be incredibly vulnerable in that space.
Yes, but which is the case also for all the animals in captivity. It's exactly the same. And they suffer in silence. And from outside, we have no idea, or a vague idea about what are the consequences of captivity. What is the consequences of loss of freedom? Hopefully, not hopefully, but now I think we now have a better idea about what does that mean, loss of freedom. I think we all know that today with what happened, with the COVID. So we know about what we are talking about, loss of freedom. But for sure, once you don't have any freedom, you start to be vulnerable.
Also, like with the animal you mentioned in the movie, when the animals get euthanized, like, they don't get that last phone call. It is the characters doing the movie.
I mean, Matt has an entire movie to sort of leave a legacy. He allots these people 30 seconds to sort of put a bow on the entirety of their life, which is very representative of what we see in this mistreatment and torture of animals in captivity. It's well put.
And also another great thing about this movie is like all the stuff we talked to from the beginning of this interview till now has been, pretty heavy, but there's some real dark comedy in here. One of the dark comedy also eventually, when you think about it, leads back to, oh god, that's depressing. But like the putting the backdrop of the supermarket behind the cage, it's like watching it human deal with that. It's like, oh, that's stupid. That's not going to mean anything to him. Oh wait, probably doesn't mean anything to the animal. Damn it.
Yeah, like humor, especially when you're telling a story sort of in your faces, this is in more than one sense is pivotal, I think, to hold an audience's attention just from a technical filmmaking point of view, but also like just has to be a part of enriching the story. You know, how do you get someone to, again, to continue to ask those questions? You have to approach it from different storytelling tactics, I think. And Philippe's script was, I think, filled with that.
And Nicholas, like as an actor, like you read the script, a script can only do so much. It's got to be clear, give everyone that reads it, paint the same picture in their head. But then as an actor, you need to perform that. Like when you read a script that you like, as an actor, what goes through your head and what's your process in kind of bringing that character to life? The best way I can put it is when you cook something, I'm going to add something to this recipe. Is it going to make it better, or am I just putting more stuff in to put more stuff in? Like, what's your process in that regard?
Well, that's great. That's a great question. My favorite way I've heard it phrased and that I have sort of adopted for myself is tilling the soil. And the ways you're going to sort of till the soil is, you know, it has to change part to part. You know, no two parts require the same types of preparation, which you've spoke on. There are certain things you sort of can't avoid not doing, but I think you have to trust your instincts and do work that you think is going to inform your instincts as best you can, because no matter what the preparation is, and my take on it is sort of whatever you think could be helpful, you're trying to cram in, because on the day that's for any of it to sort of bear fruit, so to speak, or to have a bountiful harvest, it all has to be out of your head, in your body somehow, but out of your head, and you have to deal with what's right in front of you. And part to part, how you sort of approach it, I think, is you take the first thing that jumps off the page that is of interest to you. There's always going to be a different entry point. You know, for me in this, there was a heavy Native American presence in the script. Phil had done and had pretty extensive communication in his, I think, writing and pre-production process. With a few different First Nations and Native American groups. We were privileged to work with Stoney Nakoda of the Great Sioux Nation in Calgary. And so I started reading a lot about Native American groups specific to where this took place. And that led me to the Blackfeet and reading about rites of passage and vision quests. And that was the sort of jumping off point for me. But you follow clues, man. You follow clues and try and plant good seeds and hope they come to fruition, you know, come time for action to be called.
And Phil, as a director and a writer, like what's kind of I don't know this, but I assume you have two different brains. Like Phil's brain when he's writing might be different than Phil's brain when he's directing. Like are there any different things, or like when you're writing, do you just know that you're going to direct it and it's like you can kind of cut corners on that and knowing that you'll be directing it and be able to smooth out those corners? Or
I would say for me, the most important, whatever it is, a script or when I'm the director, is to bring emotion. That is the most important. Could be a book or so. For sure, I know the challenge by writing was, okay, I have to deliver some information. You know, I have to give some information. But I mean, I think on my side, by making a trailer, a feature, just information, that's not enough. Okay, you can have information and a story. Okay, that's great. For me, if you don't have the emotion, if we're not able to transmit an emotion, then I mean, it's emotion is the key for me. So okay, because if you're attached, if you get an emotion, okay, you're gonna start to speak about the movie. You're gonna, the way you're gonna absorb the information will be completely different, and it's about sharing, some strong messages with the audience. How is it possible? The best tool is use the emotion. So for me, it's writing. I was thinking about that, and not too much information, but while I was directing is, okay, we want emotion. We want emotion, what kind of emotion. And for sure, I mean, I like to give to the actors a kind of freedom, because they're going to give their lines with all of their background about, for me, sadness. That's the way I will express, the sadness. And for sure, I mean, the cast is amazing. So, I mean, all the cast is amazing. So, I mean, that's the reason why, I decided to work with them.
And what's the back and forth with that? Like, Phil, you as a director, and Nick, you as an actor. Like, what's kind of your work relationship as far as getting that emotion across? Because Nicholas, I'm assuming you read the script and you have an idea in your head, but maybe what you're doing is not exactly what Phil's looking for, or maybe vice versa. Maybe Phil had an idea and Nick pulls something out. It's like, I didn't think of that. Just keep going there. Like, what's the work relationship like between the two of you as far as that goes?
Terrible. Just kidding.
All right. Well, that's it.
No, it's really wonderful. Philippe's a great facilitator of, I mean, what he says is true about this, the sense of freedom. I really appreciate, you don't need perfect notes as an actor. I think what you need is the sense that someone is in the trenches with you and that the best idea is going to win if we can put our ego aside and just get to the heart of what is the most honest and provocative way to tell this scene right now is how you go about communicating about it. But Phil always operated and gave me a very long leash and was very kind of gentle with the suggestions, take to take. I've heard it once said that great directing is about sort of dropping the smallest pebble in the water and seeing how it ripples out. Because if you drop a rock in and you create a wave, it's hard to get your actor back in. And so Phil's collaborative nature and his way of creating mood and tone on set, and he used music very effectively doing that. He used lighting very effectively doing that. And the way notes were given very effectively to all sort of facilitate that made you open and receptive to giving him the take you wanted to give and finding the take he wants you to give. And maybe there's something in between. But I loved working with this guy. And I can't wait to do it again.
I guess I'll end with same thing we end with everything. We have a What's in the Box segment. And in the box, we have people put movies in that they think are underseen, that they really like, or maybe they're popular movies, but it's just something that's personal to you that you really enjoy. What's a movie that each of you would like to put in the box?
Oh, Phil?
No, please. I'm thinking also.
An underseen movie.
It doesn't have to be underseen, but it's usually what people go for. Or just something that's personal to you, like, oh, I saw this when I was 12 and I loved it ever since, and it's become part of me.
I think for me, Philip Seymour Hoffman is everything you could have asked for in an actor. I think transformative when he needed to be and never in a superfluous way, always in service of storytelling. Nobody fought harder for the characters he portrayed. Obviously, deeply intelligent and deeply feeling. And I think we saw all that in, what he won an Academy Award for in Capote. It's one of my favorite films. And, that collaboration with him and Dan Fireman and the whole, I love that film. I think it's everything you could want in an actor. And Mr. Bennett, obviously is a force to be reckoned with and a hell of a first feature for him. So I'll just mention one of my favorite films and say Capote, I guess.
All right. And Phil?
I would say probably two movies that impact me for sure is Deer Hunter, the arc of the characters. I don't know, I think that I saw that movie for sure 10 times. And another movie that speaks a lot to me is Lawrence of Arabia. Also, the arc of the character is amazing from the beginning. You see how that's two examples of movies that impact me a lot. But also from all the movies from Chaplin, by how he was able to bring emotion in all of his movies. Well, so I am a big fan of Charlie Chaplin, of course.
Nice. Well, those are great picks. And yeah, Nicholas, Phil, thank you for joining me. You guys made a great movie. I think people are going to have fun with it just as a thriller aspect, but I also hope they kind of get the message you're trying to send out because that's important too.
Thanks, Eric.
So thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.